Hello, this is an assessment of a Steinway old Model A grand piano that's 185 centimetres long, 6 foot 1 inches long. It just come into stock and just seeing what sort of work we need to do on the piano. The piano was made in 1882. You can find the date on the older Steinways at the back of the frame here, so 16/9/82. I may have finished it off in 83. The serial number suggests 82 as well. Now it's alongside this other Steinway old Model A. It's called an old Model A because there's a newer Model A that has 88 notes. This one has 85, and obviously this is an old style casework. This one is in stock too. We've French polished the piano, so that's obviously had a lot of work, and it was reconditioned by someone else before we got it too. Now it's also got the date on the back of the frame, 1901. As it hasn't been repolished, the old Steinways do repolish very beautifully. Let's just turn the camera to the top of the one next to it that we've French polished. So it's a job worth doing, definitely. But the casework is not too damaged. There's very little veneer damage on it, and something we could make good if you want to pay less, obviously less expensive if you don't repolish it. You can see bits of damage here, which you can make good. And generally the piano, the rosewood looks very promising, so it would be wonderful to refinish the whole piano as well. Let's just have a look around the whole thing to get an idea and appreciate rosewood, which is in so many of the older pianos, Steinway, Bechstein, Blüthner. They all do wonderful rosewood pianos at this stage. So you see the contrast in the grain here, which comes more to light when it's repolished as well. So that's something we really appreciate doing when we repolish. The top of this piano is interesting, a slightly different grain from what we're used to, but that will also repolish beautifully. I don't think there's a fade line on it. Let's have a look. No, it's integral, so it hasn't been held back and in the sunlight as you so often get with pianos. It's been closed, I think, a lot because the top is slightly darker. It's got what are affectionately known as elephant legs, and the casters are underneath the legs, by the way. Some people wonder where they are, and that's why they do that. Richard Lipp's another make that does that, and that another top quality make. So there's the pedals and the lyre, and here's the music stand, which is original music stand too. It's got good quality ivory keys, and I don't think any of them come off being stuck back on. They're slightly worn in the middle here. The piano has been restored before and has obviously used quite a bit before that, but generally in good condition. Now it has got a major issue, and that is that the tuning pins are jumpy, and so it's extremely difficult to tune. I can demonstrate what it sounds like when they're jumpy. You can hear it jumping around, and when you try and tune it, it's almost impossible. I've only one of me here at the moment, so let's have a go. That's that string there. So I've got the pedal down. So it's very hard to set it in tune. It takes much longer than normal, and really we don't want to sell a piano like that, so we've got to do something about it. So I've replaced one of the tuning pins with a slightly faster one, and also slightly longer. I think it's 5/7, the old one, and it's 6/0 length here, and 7.25 this one, and then a thicker one, 7.35. That's not going to cure the jumpiness, but what I've done is to put French chalk on them. So before putting the pin on, French chalk is applied to it, and that's what you should do. That's a lubricant basically, and that will stop it from being jumpy. So that's just with French chalk applied to it, and testing the pin, if we move it backwards and forwards, that was extremely jumpy, that one. Listen to this one as an example of what the other. So that there's so many of them jumpy, but I just marked some of the very, very worst ones. Hear the jumpiness, and very, very difficult to keep in tune. So there's this one, and no jumpiness at all, very smooth. So it might be possible to replace the tuning pins, French chalking them first, just with one size up. That's the minimum work that you could do, but really I think we would want to replace the rest blank under here. That would then allow us to have the smallest tuning pin, because these are 7.25, which aren't the smallest ones. That's 7.35, and the problem is in the bass, because in the bass you very often find that the tuning pins are really large. So these ones here, I haven't measured them, but they are almost the largest size you can get. So fortunately they don't jump so much. I'm just mentioning all of this because I know a lot of people watch these videos and aren't able to, and thank you for watching, by the way, I try and do my best, and aren't able to perhaps change the rest plank in the piano. So you can French chalk the pins if you've got jumpy ones. You should French chalk the pins when you put them in anyway, and then they won't jump, they'll be nice and smooth. So there's the underside of the tuning block. You can see the tuning pin holes there, and we would replace that with a modern one, Delignite or rock maple, and then the tuning pins smaller tuning pins can be put in. By the way, if you are a restorer, I appreciate as a tuner if you put pretty small tuning pins in. Then if you're going to have to restring the piano at a later stage, you can put bigger ones in. So it's that's just a minor point really, but in terms of the piano, I think we do need to replace the rest plank just because of the bass pins are going to be too big, and they're just beginning to be, well, just a little bit jumpy. So it is possible, if you really can't afford to do so, or you can't have access to a rest plank, to just replace the tuning pins, French chalking them first. But there are so many loose ones, so many jumpy ones really, that we can't sell the piano like this. I wouldn't want to. Fully restoring with the piano would be wonderful. Someone has restored it. See on the soundboard here, you'd expect to see the logo for Steinway. Yeah, there's the original logo on the other one that we French polished, and we would replace the logo with that type of, it's called decal actually rather than logo. We'd replace that badge or decal and with exactly the same as it was originally. Now, something we always do is look for evidence of moth damage, and there's very slight evidence of moths being here, but they haven't damaged the felts fortunately, so they've just had a quick nibble and not attacked the piano. They often attack all of the keybed, as we've mentioned recently in some pianos we've had to restore. There's plenty of positive things to say about the piano. Somebody's replaced the hammers with the yellow felt underneath of the old Steinway felt. It means they're not too heavy. They are. There's a bit of key weighting to do, but we don't have to change the hammers to get the right weights, or we don't have to do major work. So that's encouraging, because very often people put too heavy hammers on older pianos. You need to make sure you specify when you tell the hammer maker what age the piano is. I'm sure you know that if you're watching, but just in case. These hinges are good. So quite extensive work's been done. You can see that these felts have been changed too. So there's quite a lot of tidying up of the action to do, but there's some positive things to say about it. And you can see as well the hammers haven't been too used since they were put on, so that's really not been refaced and hardly any wear. You can't see much indentation on it. So the main work to do on the piano is to replace the rest plank. I don't think we want to do anything else, so we won't be prepared to just put bigger tuning pins in because of the bass ones. Well, for other reasons too. New rest plank makes it like a new piano. It's the same type of rest plank you get in a new piano. So it's got ivory keys, and they're in good condition, and it's a typical rich toned Model A. We'll compare it to old Model A. We'll compare it to some other pianos before we finish, and just looking at different things there. Now, the key dip's 10. It's, for me, I prefer 10.5 or 11, but 10 is not uncommon for this old Steinway grand. So, and the hammers are good, so there's some positive things to say. And the case is all original. The key weighting, well, that's something we're always doing, as we mentioned before. So just briefly, should be 50 roughly in the bass, and then 48 there and 46 there. Vary slightly from that, as I've mentioned, other slightly different measurement. The pedal stays broken. Well, that's something which we can obviously sort out. So it's quite out of tune, but we'll try and compare it with some other pianos in stock. This is the 1901 Steinway. And a Mason and Hamlin 1926. This is slightly shorter. It's 174 centimetres. So that's an old Steinway Model A made in 1882. Very similar construction indeed to the Model A made in 1901. By the way, there's something I forgot to mention, and that is that the unicorda goes left, which is unusual, instead of right. There are some pianos that do that, and just surprised me, because when you press it down you expect it to go to the right, but obviously it makes no difference really in terms of using it as an unicorda. Where it really scores is the rich bass, and they really do have, I think the old Steinway's Model A have one of the richest basses of all grand pianos. Obviously a longer piano has a richer bass. Very out of tune, sorry about that. So it's an old Model A Steinway Grand. It's come into stock. If you're interested in having the piano, then the least we're going to do is to replace the tuning pins, rest plank, strings obviously, restore the soundboard. Once we've got everything apart, we might as well put the logo decal back on the soundboard. And but we'd love to fully restore the piano and repolish it. So let us know by emailing info@robertspianos if you're interested. Thank you very much for listening.